Hello and welcome to For Fox's Sake. My name is Pete Selby. Alongside me is John O'Towers and also Joe Healy. We are talking all things Watford against Leicester this coming Saturday. At the time of recording, it's tomorrow. And we're previewing the big clash, one of many big clash. Every single game from now to the end of the season is a big clash. If you are watching live, then do get involved. Send your questions through, send your thoughts through regarding Watford against Leicester on Saturday. And if you're watching back to this podcast, either on YouTube or Facebook or on X, or maybe you're listening via Apple Podcasts or maybe Spotify, etc., then and it's after the final whistle. Well, our predictions have not gone quite to plan this season, have they? The whole season's not gone quite to plan for Leicester. Do check out For Fox's Sake News. For FoxSake.news is your one-stop shop for all coverage of Leicester City. And again, for £5, you can subscribe. And it means you get all of the great content on there. It's £5 per month. And it keeps these podcasts absolutely free. And I have been beavering away after my exploits over at the Winter Olympics with the latest batch of our top 100 players. I can exclusively reveal, because they won't be online, they won't be on the website until, I believe, Monday. And of course, you can read all the information there at foxsake.news. I can exclusively reveal the next batch. We have a player from the 1920s. We have a player from the 60s, a real stalwart of the 60s. We have a flamboyant player from the 70s who I've written probably more words on in the last 24 hours than I've written in my life. You can maybe guess who that is. And then maybe it's a player who's had an awful long career at Leicester after he finished playing. And also two players from, I say recent times. I count them as recent times because I saw them. One of them, a trophy winner from the 90s, and another player from around about the late 2010s. So the late 2010s. Think of who would be in the top 100 who played for Leicester in the late, from about 2017 onwards, that sort of player. So yeah, that's the next batch. I think it's numbers 69 down to 65. So do check that out on forfox8.news along with everything else. And again, do subscribe. It's the price of a pint per month. Also, if you are listening to the podcast, do rate and review. Do give us 5 stars. We are all slaves to the algorithm, and it makes sure that we are top of the algorithm and other supporters can find the podcast, which is great. Now, chaps, we're playing Watford. My first thought driving back here today was Watford away. What's your first thoughts about Watford away? What are the memories of Leicester playing at Vicarage Road? I wonder, Jono, what's your first thought when you think of Watford away?
Yeah, Troy Deeney, isn't it?
No.
It's Troy Deeney. Yeah. What a glorious day that wasn't. Yeah, I mean, we could have signed Troy Deeney as well. He would have been a great signing, wouldn't he, for us back in the day? But yeah, Vicarage Road. I mean, are we normally half decent at Vicarage Road, though? Apart from that one day, I think normally it's a reasonably happy hunting ground there, isn't it, for us?
It is. But it's always a game that's shown on Sky, isn't it? It's always that game when you turn Sky Sports on at 9:30 in the morning. On a random Tuesday, and all of a sudden on their third football channel, they're showing pretty much the entire game. And it's a game, Joe, where we had all sorts up front, didn't we? We was a Harry Kane with Jamie Vardy and all sorts were going on. It was, and then you had, and then of course they showed the game after as well. The when we went back there in kind of a bit of a redemption. But anyway, the one thing about that game is that I do look back on it and it's absolutely fine because, and a lot of people at work, they'll point at it and say, oh, look what they're showing again. And I'm like, yeah, because guess what happened afterwards? All the glory happened after that. Without the defeat to Watford, we wouldn't have been Premier League champions somewhat. But just a quick word on actually what Jono said, because we were going to buy Troy Deeney after we won the league and we ended up buying Islam Slimani, and Deeney more than likely would have been a better player. Quite how he would have fit into the changing room, I don't know, because he's quite a controversial character. Let's just use that broad term, put it that way. I'm not entirely sure whether he's covered himself in all sorts of glory since he's finished his playing career, and maybe even before his playing career. But he's got an interesting story to tell. It would have been a real handful, him and Vardy up front.
Yeah, all right. Couple of bastards, basically. That'd be great. That we'd have wanted to see that, wouldn't we? I saw an interview with him. He was talking about it. I think it was quite a last-minute thing, the fact that he didn't sign as well in the end. It was quite close to being done, I think. Maybe I've misremembered that.
No. I think that's true. I think it's true. I think I don't know the exact details, but I think he was basically on the verge of signing, and then it kind of stalled for a minute. And I think he was offered a really good contract at Watford, and obviously he would have been earning a lot of money at Leicester. But he has got interesting stories to tell if you with Deeney, especially in his early days at Watford, how he got from basically being a non-league player to all of a sudden being essentially in the First Division or Championship, and then in the Premier League, and how he got his new contracts and what that effect that had on him. In and around the people he was hanging out with at the time. That's an interesting story. Anyway, he ain't playing this weekend, is he? And we're going to be talking all things. I mean, to be honest, it's actually quite nice to have a conversation regarding Leicester without mentioning the current day, because it's been quite dreadful. What have you chaps been doing since I've been away? I left you with all the positive thoughts. Of course not. But we had that victory against Bristol City, and the problem with the win against Bristol City, there was always that nagging little devil on the shoulder saying, was it Leicester playing well, or was it that Bristol City were absolutely awful? And I think it might have been the latter. I think it might have been Bristol City were very poor, contributing to a better Leicester performance. And then the QPR game, it all unravelled. All of the old demons rose to the top. The devil on the shoulder was joined by a whole army, and it infiltrated Leicester's minds. And essentially, Leicester completely folded because, Jono, a player went to the near side and had a conversation after 25 minutes with their manager. And because of that slight break in play with a player down faking an injury, Leicester fell apart when they were 1-up. They are the most fragile of fragile sides. But when you look at a game against Watford, a side who are 5 points off the playoffs, looking for a victory, I don't fear anyone in this division, because Leicester have been so poor. There's no use worrying about an away trip to Watford, an away trip to Middlesbrough or Ipswich. And it's been the better sides that we've been getting the better results against, apart from the Bristol City game, which was a complete one-off, wasn't it? So I don't think we can be scared of them, can we? But should we be more scared of Leicester than the opposition?
I mean, getting results. I mean, I'm struggling to remember as getting any kind of results, with regard to in a row. The Bristol City was a one-off. I think it was one of those where they were very, very poor, frankly, and we got away with one. I think we were less poor of the two. Saying that, I think it is a league where anyone can beat anyone on the day. And I know we keep saying it, banging on about it every week, but it's... hang on a minute. I've got a visitor.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Jono. Joe, what are your thoughts leading into the game? And do you agree with what I said about we should actually be more worried about ourselves than the opposition?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm down in the West Country, so I've got quite a few Bristol City supporting mates. And when I saw them at five-a-side, they said, "Yeah, it's not much of an honour to beat Bristol at the moment." They were doing their thing. They seem to have exactly the same season every year, really. And so, I mean, all I can say is based on the pattern, this has got a kind of 1-1 draw, hard-working draw written all over it, really, from what we've seen. If I was going to say that, I'd be saying, with a terrible home performance to follow. Unfortunately, that's the pattern we've seen quite a lot all season, really, isn't it? I mean, that said, yeah, we can definitely beat them. On paper, we should be able to beat anyone, but I mean, I've been hearing, all season we've been hearing this kind of like, on paper, we've got the players, we have got good players, but are they good players if you're only above Sheffield Wednesday, who are right down there because of their points deduction? Do we actually have good players? It's been said a lot, but I'm not really sure it's true. hopefully we can put in a decent performance. I mean, Gary Rowett sounds like he's on one, but he's been slightly backtracking. He's been doing that sort of manager thing where he's starting to backtrack on things he said. So it's a hard one to call, really. But I would hope that we'll follow that pattern of putting in an actual, somehow being slightly better away than we are at home. And, I think it helps us when the other team wants to play. We can't, although that said, QPR didn't have to do anything to score goals against us. So it's hard to call at the moment, isn't it?
It is. I was going to mention Rowett, Jono, and Rowett's comments after the game, slightly scary in a way, because he's been there for enough time really to identify the players who aren't pulling their socks up and pretty much identify the players who are. And unless Jordan Ayew is absolutely Maradona in training, I'm not entirely sure what he's seeing there compared to anything else he's got in his forward line. There's obviously a number of players who have been brought in, Richards, etc., who are just not in favour to be starting. And then to be making the same comments after the defeat to QPR that we've heard all season about the team, it's not what we want to hear. It's not what I want to hear from Gary Rowett. Personally, I don't really care actually what he says, as long as we get the points. I don't care who plays. I don't care how they get the points. It's just all about survival, and then we can just start again in the summer. But as we're previewing the game, that's what we're going to be talking about and what we want. And I want to know what you want out there as well, watching live. Who do you want to play? Who do you want to start? And who do you want to be dropped as well? And with a manager like Rowett, he understands the club. He understands football. And surely, Jono, he must have looked at that defeat and someone must have said to him, or maybe he might have thought to himself, don't go in front of the cameras or the microphone at the end of the game and go, well, yeah, actually, I think there's a few players in the squad who actually need to think about themselves because they're not just doing it. Yeah, we know. We've been here the whole season. We know that, Gary. We thought you would have been the sort of person to come in and identify that after 3 or 4 games. And after 3 or 4 games, all of a sudden, you're bringing back into the side the players who were dropped initially by yourself. When we started to get a few points and a bit of a run on, and you started to have a good bit of goodwill from the fans and everyone going, actually, yeah, you have identified the issue and you are playing the best possible side that you have to hand. And all of a sudden, he's starting to backtrack and now questioning players. That's very, very puzzling and worrying.
Yeah, I think the QPR result, I think, was a massive wake-up call, frankly, for him. I think he's come in. I think he's come in without doing, well, it seems, without doing all of the homework that, on the rest of the season. He's sort of come in and sort of treated everyone with a fresh sheet of paper, and everyone's got a chance again, just like any new manager. But actually, what we need is a manager to come in and have done the backup and the homework as to what's been going on all season. We've all seen it, game in, game out, and it almost feels like he came into Leicester thinking, oh yeah, they've probably got a decent squad in a false position. All I need to do is sort out a little bit of organisation, and we'll start picking up points and results. I think it's a bigger problem than that. There's a massive problem in Seagrave in the squad that is showing itself on the pitch, and I think that Rowett has finally woken up to the fact that there is a big issue, and he doesn't actually know what the issue is, because I think we always say it on paper, and we I think Joe mentioned it as well. You would imagine, you would think that from an outside point of view, that we have the squad and the players to give anyone a game in this level, but clearly we haven't, because of the position we're in. So have we really got the players? I think from an outsider looking in and not having experienced what we've experienced all season, I think, and Rowett's probably that, is that he's now, I think, got a wake-up call as to the fact that there is a bigger problem to sort out here. And maybe it's too big a job for him. I don't know. I mean, he probably won't admit that to himself. But I think ultimately it's a bigger issue than staying up. I think, it needs a massive wipe the slate clean job, really, and start all over again, frankly. But
well, absolutely.
that's not the position we're in. We need him to, and he's been. I mean, I listened to the Radio Leicester interview the other day, and he's now talking about the trust issue that he was talking about. I think he, after the game, was really angry, and he kind of said that off the cuff, saying that, you know, we can't trust this lot, and we've been saying that all season anyway. But I think that he's sort of, like you say, backtracked a little bit on that now and trying to keep the players on side, and he's even talking about a formation change. So, you know, talking about things I'd like to see. Yeah, I mean, people are talking about a back three. I mean, I think we mentioned this around Christmas, didn't we, Pete? I remember saying it on a few occasions with you. Why aren't we trying something different? 2 up front, maybe, or maybe 3 at the back, or let's try something different. Now we're running out of time, frankly, to start looking at these things. But, you know, hopefully we've still got enough time to try and see if something like that would work.
We are running out of time, and the funny thing is, you can play with a back three, and that allows you to play with a front two at the same time as well. It's ridiculous. We are in that scramble at the end, Joe, where we're not really looking for a formation change to maybe then play up until Christmas, or looking at the next group of fixtures, or blood some youngsters, etc. From or maybe ease in a big money signing from a foreign field, etc. We're not in that stage, are we now? Everybody watching this or listening to this, either live or on record, or maybe watching the live stream, or maybe watching on YouTube later on tonight, say, they'll all have their thoughts. They'll all have those players that they don't want to be playing and those that they do want to be playing. I'm kind of in the position now where, regardless of the formation that Gary Rowett wants to play, and we know that he likes to play that 4-2-3-1, which is, again, just in stone, isn't it, in football at the moment, regardless of what level. Now, I'm at this stage of the season coming along the lines of, and not even, I'm a fully paid up member of you pick the players who are going to work hard and also not necessarily going to get the results, because, you know, football is football, but you've got to play certain players at this current time. And also, playing certain players means you're not playing certain players. And I want to know that. I want to know who you want to play. Now, realistically, they need to be in a positional sense where it's not going to have 5 forwards, for example. But having the big conversation would be about Winks and James. James came back into the side, scored the goal, he looks fully fit now, but Winks didn't start. Personally, I think you need to play all 3. Okay, with Skip. I think you need to get your best players on the field. I don't think Leicester have any such control when Winks isn't playing. Can Winks, James, and Skip all play in the same side? I believe that they can. That would be also a midfield diamond, midfield 3 of maybe a 3-5-2. I think the 3-5-2 allows us to put our best players onto the field and also, crucially, have that 2 up front. Maybe it's Mikasa dropping off, say, a Daka away from home. That could easily be the case, but it's interchangeable. Out wide, yes, that might cause 1 or 2 issues. Who would you play, etc.? Would you play, say, Thomas on one side, etc., or would you bring the wingers further back into a wing-back position? But I want to know from you, Joe, who do you want to play and who do you not want to play? Hard, yes, no on certain players.
Ooh, first name on the team sheet, Jordan Ayew. No, I'm joking. He's in the bin. I think most people must think the same, surely. We don't really want to be seeing him on the pitch ever again, really, for Leicester. But yeah, less said about him sort of falling over and lying on the floor, the better. So yeah, Daka and Mikasa. I like the back 3 idea. Just put Lascelles in there. I mean, that was the funny thing about Rowett's comments, wasn't it? You know, I need to find players I can trust. Well, guess what? There aren't any. There's 2 or 3 max. You know, You're not going to be able to trust these guys. So you're just going to have to sort of pick the best of a bad bunch, really, I think is what you're going with. Yeah, with the back 3, Lascelles with Okoli and Nelson. If it was a back 2, controversially, probably not everyone's choice, but I mean, do you take off? Do you put Lascelles in for Nelson because he's had a couple of stinkers recently? Probably the ideal time was to take him off after the first half against QPR. Slightly changed now. You probably want to, you don't want to dent his confidence or whatever it is. But yeah, Lascelles, completely agree. The three midfielders, we got overrun a bit by QPR. They managed to get through the midfield very easily. So we need Jordan James to have more than 20 minutes of a good game. Great goal from him. I'd be interested. Yeah, do you keep Luke Thomas? Fatawu again, really inconsistent, but we know what he can do. I might be tempted to play Luke Thomas because I've always said he could cross a ball in.
Problem is when you cross a ball, you need to have players in the middle, don't you? You need to have those runners from deep, which if you do have those three in midfield, you've got Skip and Winks who naturally are anchoring in midfield, and it will give you Jordan James the ability to get forward. And also, you're not the midfielder, Jono, who's solely going to get forward, because alongside him or just in front of him is a Makassa. And then in front of him is another footballer in Daka who's stretching the play, etc. So instantly you're having three players there who have the ability to get into the penalty area on the end of a possible cross from maybe a Thomas, etc., or maybe a more defensive-minded fullback or wing-back in this system who might cross maybe slightly from deep rather than take on their man like Mavadivdi or Fatawu. Would you be in favour, if we're going down this 3-5-2 route, would you be in favour of having two more defensive wing backs like a Thomas and Ricardo, or would you be looking towards Mavadidi and Fatawu from the start, or would you keep Mavadidi and Fatawu maybe as impact subs?
See, when I think 3-5-2, I remember the semi-final World Cup, England versus West Germany, when Bobby Robson changed it up in that match. That's what I always think about. And then also the same thing happened with Pearson in The Great Escape, changing it three at the back. And in those roles, I remember you'd have defensive players playing out wide to almost sort of drop back into a back five should the need arise. So as much as I'm not the biggest fan of Luke Thomas, I think that he's probably the man to do the job on that side if you're going to go back three. And possibly Pereira on the other, to be honest. Although I wouldn't be against the idea of putting Fatawu that side. He can get up and down, but
I mean, Ricky
I'm just wondering.
Legs wouldn't do it, I don't think, would they? Can he run up and down like that?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't got loads and loads. We're not blessed with loads of options, frankly. And you do need probably runners up and down that side. So I'd probably go Fatawu, to be honest, just for the sake of the fact that he can get up and down. And as long as he's well drilled, and in a formation like that, potentially has he got more? Because people double up on Fatawu, which is one of the reasons why we've seen him being ill-effective in some games, I think. Okay, yes, his form hasn't been brilliant and he's been up and down, but sometimes when he's up against two, then and it's much more difficult. So I would definitely go three across the midfield, because I think that's where the games are generally won, in midfield. If you can win the midfield battle, then that is, a good way to try and win the game. And then, yeah, with Daka up front and Makassa or Dakova Reed, he's not been pulling up loads of trees either. So I would go Makassa, because he's, when he's playing well, he looks like he's got another level or two above what we've got. So, yeah, I would be going that way with a 3-5-2.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of singing off the same hymn sheet here with a 3-5-2. Change the formation to try and change up first of all fortunes, but also to maybe give the back three, or should I say the back line, a little bit of respite from this incessant back four, and also you're slotting in your best players into midfield. And I would actually put Makassa in there as well. I agree with that last comment, Jono, about Makassa having 3 or 4 levels above what we've already got on his day. And he's obviously a young player. He's going to have off days, he's going to have on days. And on an on day, he is a step above probably everyone on the field, including the opposition. So if you're including him alongside Winks, alongside James, alongside Skip, there's your very, very good midfield, or at least the best that we can actually put out onto the field. Now, the opposition are Watford. They're a very strange team, quite a young side. On their day, they can be very good. They beat Wrexham the other day to close within 5 points. They've got who I declared the best player in the world, Nestorian Kuna, early in the season, who scored 2 of the best free kicks you'll see back to back. Youngster, Australian youngster, absolutely fantastic player. But he kind of fell away from the first team, and now he's back. He's back to haunt Leicester. So they're a very up and down side. Hopefully we'll catch him on an off day. But to finish off, I want to know your prediction. I want to know we've talked about who we want to play. We will talk about what formation we want to play. I think in terms of style, etc., that's just kind of all out the window for now, on the back of what we've seen in the last couple of games. Talk about roller coaster. But what I want to know, Joe, is who do you think is going to start? Not who you want to start. Who do you think is going to start? And then from then on, what the score's going to be.
Yeah, I listened to the Gary Rowett interview this morning on the Radio Leicester podcast, and he sort of talked about formation. I wasn't convinced that he was going to go for it. So I think he'll put in Lascelles. It's a toss-up for who. Probably Okoli. And I think we'll probably see a similar team, really, even though he said, what he said. But he has to get those 3 on the pitch, the midfield 3, and he has to start Daka instead of Jordan Ayew, because we're playing with 10 men. And also, just as a side note, Begovic is quite close to coming back, I think. I'd put him in. Jakob just looked a bit shaky, unfortunately. I think it's going to be, as I sort of alluded to earlier, it's going to be a 1-1-all. And perhaps we'll see. I'm not sure if he's playing very much for him, but is it Napoli's Mendy? He's there. So he's a goal machine, so he'll score for them.
Yeah, good old Mendy in the midfield. Jono, same question to you, really. Who do you think Leicester are going to start? Not who do we want. We know, and we've spoken about who we want to start and what formation we want to play. Who do you think actually is going to start? And then again, your prediction for the score.
Yeah, I mean, I took exactly the same feelings from the Radio Leicester interview that I listened to this morning as well. I don't think he will go for a change in formation. It didn't sound like he was totally convinced that is the way to go at this point. But we are running out of games, and I really hope he doesn't leave it too late. So I think we will see the dreaded 4-2-3-1 again. I think he'll bring Winks in. I think he'll bring Lascelles in. For who, I'm not quite sure. I would probably take Nelson out, frankly, because we all acknowledge he's had a couple of stinkers. He probably needs a bit of a break. He's a young player. So Okoli and Lascelles, I think they're both units. We've got a bit of pace with Okoli. Admittedly, he hasn't got much else. But and then I think he'll bring in Pereira again. Because again, Hamza has been stinking the place out as well, and Luke Thomas. So I think the midfield is a tricky one, because I think Winks needs to start. All 3 need to start. So I don't really know. I reckon he'll play Jordan James potentially as number 10, and then he'll use Mikasa potentially off the bench or something like that. I don't think Ayew will start. I think he's learnt his lesson now. Hopefully, if we see Ayew starting again, then I'm not quite sure where we go from there. But I think Daka will start with Mikasa coming on off the bench. That's what I think.
Well, Planet Earth has mentioned he would play 4-3-3, Skippy Winks, JJ in midfield, Steffi Mikasa, Fatawa in attack. Don't want to see Fatawa doing it defending. 3-1, unfortunately. Last few seconds of the pod, so do quickly get your team in and your predictions. I completely agree with what we mentioned about Jordan James. I think, unfortunately, it's going to be a back 4 the same. And I think he will stay with Skip in midfield along with Winks. I think will come in along those along those two in that in that defensive positions, and then I think he will play Jordan James further forward, which we've seen already this season. It doesn't really work, does it? And then it will be Daka up front. So I think that's the way it's going to go. We can sit here and pontificate and talk about what we would do and how we would change things, but Rowett, we've got to see it first, haven't we? Because he can mention it a couple of times in interviews, but until we actually see it, we won't believe it, really. You know, I think he's just a creature of habit, and unfortunately, that's Rowett essentially putting in players into positions rather than putting players on the field and trying to build a side around the best players and the players that he needs to be playing and the players that he can talk about being players he can maybe trust or maybe get rid of players who he can't trust. You can't do that if you stick into one formation. You know, you need to be very flexible, but we shall see. Did you get a score as well, Jono?
Yeah, I think the best we can hope for is probably a draw, and that's probably what I'll go for as an optimistic effort. I'm not feeling terribly optimistic, but a draw isn't what we need. We need 3 points. So I can't see us getting 3 points, but you know, I'd happily be surprised. So I'm going for a draw.
Mr. Fox Favourite said, didn't Rowett say it was too much of a gamble to change the formation? It needs to, though. Yeah, absolutely. Why wouldn't you gamble at this stage? Also, you're risking a formation that's being used all season that hasn't worked. That's the thing, you know. Why wouldn't you gamble at this stage? There's nothing left to lose. You've just lost heavily at home against QPR, but I think we're on the same wavelength there, Mr. Fox Favourite. I believe we might get a point, and I'm looking down the maybe a 2-2 route. I think we might score a couple, but I can just see them scoring again. You know, I think it needs to be changed up, but we shall see. Talking all things Ricardo Pereira as well, there's a lovely article by Andy Moore on the website on for fox8.news regarding Ricardo Pereira and whether it's the end of an era for Pereira, whether he goes in the summer and what kind of legacy he leaves and looking back on his career, etc. Pereira, is he inside the top 100 all-time Leicester City players? Is he on the list? We're into the 60s now on for fox8.news. Maybe he's going to feature. He hasn't featured yet, or has he? You're going to have a look at the website for fox8.news and check that out and check out the new players that will be on there probably on Monday once I've finished writing about a flamboyant 70s midfielder who maybe has had an awful long career at Leicester after playing there. And digging out some really good stories and also remembering some of the stories that I remember seeing this individual doing pre-match, halftime, etc., and all those shenanigans. That's it for the podcast. That's it for all those watching live on YouTube, on X, on Facebook. If you're listening back again, do give us a 5-star rating. We are all slaves to the algorithm. The algorithm controls everything nowadays. So with a 5-star review, what you'll be doing is helping out Leicester fans find the podcast. Head over to for fox8.news. It's the price of a pint. It's £5 a month for all of the glorious content, including full coverage of Leicester City women. Did you hear the podcast last night? It was fantastic with Lee Saunders talking to BBC Radio Leicester women's sports show host Zoe McGrady. Really, really good. Second time she's been on the women's football show on for Fox's sake. Plenty of coverage on the women's team. They're in a relegation dogfight as well, right down at the bottom of the WSL. Full coverage on for fox8.news there. A little bit of an international roundup as well. And plenty more this weekend. Have had a good read of the 5 things to look forward to in the game against Watford. Fingers crossed, what could happen on Saturday? Well, if we get 3 points, we might be outside of the relegation zone. We're getting to the points where even with a win, we might not be out of the relegation zone. We need to get something because we can't rely on the perceived easier games on paper because at the moment it's an absolute mess down at the City. But we'll be back next week with full coverage for Fox's sake, from the boys and from myself. Good night.